Alright, so we'll go ahead and get started. Today we're going to talk about a lot of the things we normally talk about, which is the full right side, breaking it down as far as left wrist, right wrist, when it bends, what the timing of that, then when the elbow takes over, and then matching up the turn. And so it'll make more sense when I go through the swings, because a lot of times with even in our system when we get the wedges down, a lot of times players, if they're not hands-on, they don't understand how to convert it when they get halfway back from 3/4 or a full swing, and they might miss that block. They usually, you don't see too many people struggle if you're really training the drills that we do and going through the program and studying and doing it the correct way, and using your videos and changing it and seeing your visual changes and stuff like that. Usually they get their wedge play up really good, so their scores drop down quite a bit. They see improvements with their ball striking, but they still don't have it at the level that they could have it at. And so we're going to talk about where a lot of that happens, and so forth. And we're going to use Dustin Johnson as an example to start with. We're going to look at two different views. We'll look at, this is down the line, then we'll look at the face-on view. But as you go down the line, as he starts back, what happens with him is you'll see it more in the face-on, but right here, he's bending a little bit more of his left wrist, than his right. His right's still bending, obviously. He's getting a double side bend, which will start, that's one of the reasons why you start to see him at the top, where he'll get, with that, you'll start to see that club get shut and the bowing and all that stuff. It's, like I said, a little more left wrist side bend, but he's bending the right wrist as well, so he's doing both. He's just doing it a little bit excessively because that's the way he found it. He doesn't need to change it. The way he does it, really the right is bending the left, and I have to show you to prove it, but it doesn't really matter. It's not a big deal. It doesn't change with what we do, but the right bends it. It just bends it a lot more than what we teach it. But if you find it that way, and that's where your power's coming from, and you're having a lot of success, then I would tell you to go with it. Most people try to bow their left wrist, and that you run into a tremendous amount of straightening the left arm and trying to bow the left wrist. I usually see more bad things happen with that because it locks up energy in the wrist. You get injured because the right wrist is now, usually there's a roll there too as well with the left arm, quite a bit of roll. It usually just doesn't work very well. You might have a player or two that has some success with it, and it usually kind of goes away over time. It's just not near as effective because it's not moving your right side. If you look at the way we teach, everything is right side. So if you get your right side correct, it'll move your left, and it dominates it. And then it's your coordinated side. So it's moving things around, and there's a lot of things that you'll benefit from that. So, but from here, a lot of times players get in here and they're okay. They get in some of these angles, some of them, and don't look at the face or any of that. I mean, some people look at that and think you can't play. Well, he's the #1 player in the world right now, and I'd much rather see that than what people think is square, which is usually, well, it is open in this area. So if the club was square to the shaft, it would actually be open. He's got a little shut here relative to that, but not as much as people think. So. And he's got his right hand on top at this point, so his plane is going to be good working up, and he's going to be using his right arm to work up over the shoulder now. He's not bending it off to the left and getting flat and stuff like that. But this is where, if you're practicing, you probably as far as you would be going in your training. If you can master that shot, the wedges, that your game's going to radically change. Now, how you convert it, you're going to use this lifeline here, and we'll turn it over to see. Do it this way. Same position going back. And then from here, let's just say you're in that same spot. He's going to take his the way you do it. Now, it depends on the player. If you don't have this, because a lot of times what happens is this elbow will collapse. It'll get, and then you'll start to get vertical wrist cock, and the club will start cocking too quickly, and so forth. And how you beat that is by pushing your right lifeline. If you're doing this correct, it just starts to rise. It'd be rising up and back, as you'll see. From here, kind of keeps that, and that'll push that left arm and elbow both away. You don't want to get the right arm too straight, but if you just press that lifeline, you can see it presses that lifeline up. That gives you a lot of radius and space between your arms and body. If you get too much radius here, you'll lose power. And if you get the arms, too close back in here, the hand position too close in here, depending on the player, there's different styles. Like Bubba Watson would have them there, and some of the other ones Dustin does with his driver. He gets them kind of back here. But really, most of the time, you don't need to get them too far back. But really, it's just still the same thing. This lifeline's pressing for most people, it needs to kind of feel like that halfway point, it just kind of presses upward and a little bit out away from the target, but not extreme either. And when you do that, if you can feel that with your right lifeline, and that's right in here, it's covering into that thumb, you can see that right lifeline, the right lifeline is covering into that left thumb there. He's using and pressing that. There would be energy in there for sure. There's no doubt. And it's a most effective way to have width in the golf swing. It's also a most effective way to have control of the club at the top of the swing by having that. And it'll fix an elbow. I'm not talking about positions necessarily. I'm talking about but if that elbow from here starts to break down and fold and cup and get closer to the body, you're going to see this club start doing a lot of dancing at the top. And you don't need it. You know, you need shaft stability in transition, not that loosey goosey stuff. And you don't want it to be radically stiff either. Usually, if it's too stiff, that's somebody trying to keep their left arm straight or bend their left wrist or bow it or something like that. So just a bunch of different ways. That's why the right is good, but great because it keeps the softness in here. It keeps the width and everything else, but it also keeps the softness as well. So again, we'll look at that one more time. Where that conversion is. The first conversion is if you get your takeaway out, you're wide and everything, then you're going to start seeing that bend. And then from here, that right hand as you're turning, that right lifeline as you're turning your body, so as you're turning this part, you're having to coordinate them, this is starting to rise this way. And the natural turn will get it to the top at that point. But you're just keeping that pressure away and letting it, and kind of going, rising it up, but not lifting. There's a big difference. And that will get you stable in transition, allow you to go attack the golf ball better. A lot of distal end speed, which is just radius. So it also gets you set up to strike well in the downswing. So we'll come back over and take a look. So from here, again, you've got this area most people get to somewhat decent. And then you just take this lifeline and start rising it up that shoulder plane right there. All right, and you saw the other direction that you go with it as well. So from the face on, then you get here. All right, so that's kind of like the second conversion. You really have your first conversion is where there is no arm rotation here. There's nothing, and then all of a sudden the right wrist bends here. The second conversion is just up to wherever the top is, pressing that lifeline up and away, like I showed earlier. That's really your two conversions. You get the first one right, train on it, and then you go to the second one and you train on that. And then you've got, if you've done them correct, you get the first and the second one right, then when you come down, you really are going to have the club behind the wrist, because there's verticals where everybody gets stuck and they're dead. Their body stalls, stops. You can't attack it. See, when his shaft is down like this because of his wrist bend and his turn, and both conversions are right, when it's all right like that, then he can go attack this thing with his right side. He can go attack it with that right shoulder that I always talk about, going down and get that ball and go through it and under it. And he does that better than anybody, because one, he's got the shaft position to do it. So if you see here, you're going to see that working at a right side up, working and attacking under, real low right shoulder, staying down with, still low through it, and then he can move on and move forward and be good to go. Yeah. So that's really cool. That's really, today, there's not a whole lot other, you can look at other examples, but they really all do it different. They'll look differently, but they're doing the same stuff. Wrist bending is, you better understand it. Arm roll, those two are the most important to start with, like arm rolling, not rolling the forearms in the backswing, and not cocking the wrist vertically. And we talk about that all the time, and there's a reason why we do, because we don't really have to change that. Just the more you hear that, the better it gets. So you can see here, it kind of goes back and up, starts to get wrist bend there. It's got it up in front now. It's got that pressure, that right lifeline has pressure, and it can go get the ball. Totally different swing, big power, hits the ball solid as JB Holmes. It doesn't matter who you look at, Some people cock the club. I think Charlie's because of the style he has. So Dave always kind of taught, but even he doesn't do it. Yeah. So he used to have kind of more of a vertical. That's right on, right where it should be. Lifeline's pressing up and away. kind of lost a little of that lifeline. That some of that he lost some in transition, but you can see because the shaft is it is still behind. He's not vertical. He doesn't have the shaft vertical relative to his wrist. So if his right thumb here was on top, and you see both hands on top vertically, that shaft's going to be standing up vertically, and you're not. It doesn't allow you to go attack the golf ball and get your right side through the golf ball. You have to tilt back, roll the club around at impact, and doesn't cause for most people just don't do it, so they just hit it really bad doing that. That's why you want an angle here, and that angle, it's just simple. Think about it. It's just wrist. The wrists are vertical. If the forearm is rolled, you could have the club too flat. Most people don't have that. So they have, that's just all basically done by wrist. The directional arm swing can cause some of it, but wrists are what keeps the shaft away from being vertical or tipping it all. If they tip that right hand, if that right hand just tips over here, that's pretty simple. That club head's going to be with it. So that's why we always talk about it, and that's what's most important. Your right side, I mean, there's not a lot to it. I mean, you just face on. You know, your body. We got 100 videos. Actually, I think we have 300 videos that usually have this in it about turning your right side on top of your feet and centering. Talk about that all the time. And so if your right side is going to be turning as you're doing this with your arm, wrist, and elbow. And so you don't really think of the elbow. The elbow can break you down though. So that's why we have to mention the elbow, because the elbow is designed to flex and extend. So if it flexes, it over flexes, or tries to get too underneath the shaft, that you'll start losing shaft stability. The club will start bouncing up in here. We don't want that. We want that club stable, all that energy, like I always talk about in that section of the shaft, where we want that energy right in this area. All right, and then that way, once you have that energy in that area, you can apply that against the golf ball, and good things happen. So body's pretty simple, never really changes. I mean, some people turn later than others. We can't assume, like I always say, that somebody's going to get it. So we have to say that we have to teach a style that teaches us to turn right off the ball. So if you're trying to help people that are doing this online, you can't say, okay, don't turn, and then all of a sudden turn. You can. It's a style. If you do it naturally, as long as you do it, that's fine, and you're great at it, that's fine. But most people don't. If they don't turn here, they're not turning up at the top. Now, see, he's kind of stable here. He's turning a little bit here, but he's not turning as much as I would teach to anybody, tour player or a beginner, because he's going to get up there and find it later. He's going to get his turn right there later in this transition. But I can't assume amateurs are going to figure out how to do that, and then they could break down doing that as well, like break down the arms or the wrist, or their body just gets stiff from trying to do it late. So you just have to turn early, and that's why we want to control that right arm in the backswing, control the right wrist and the elbow. Like I said, the elbow is just, it's not the arm is definitely something you can work on and train. The wrist is something you can train. The elbow gets fixed by how you use, again, that lifeline and pushing it up and away. And there's a few videos where I talk about how to use that right lifeline in the golf swing. And that's what it's designed to do. That's why you keep it in the lifeline. Keep it in the lifeline so you can use that to press that club up and get shaft stability and a better angle, delivery energy angle. Keeps the club shallower, allows you to tackle with your right side, so that means you're going to have more mass and forward momentum and rotation going together through the ball, which is going to be powerful. And you're going to have, like I said, the club's always going to be behind the hands and up, and therefore when that all comes together, that is your lag, that is your plane, that is your everything, how you come through the ball. So, and with that being said, I don't see anybody on. I know one of the reasons why we're doing the webinars earlier now is because of during the summertime, it's not a good time to be doing webinars at 5 o'clock when you need to be playing. Everybody knows my philosophy on that. If you're new on here, it's make sure that you're getting, you should play as many holes as possible. So if you can play 100 holes a week plus, have at it. If you can only play, if all you can play is 9 holes, play 9 holes. Play as much and accumulate as many rounds as possible, and you'll start seeing your game change while you're working on these techniques. Number one thing is playing, getting out there and hitting shots, and trying to play. Some people can't do it. If you can't, that's just the way it is. But if you had an hour, if somebody had an hour a day to go to a driving range and hit full shots, I would tell them go to your golf course and play 3 holes a day. You'll get better over the course of the summer doing that than you will sitting out there hitting the balls for an hour every day or 2 hours every day and working on your swing and new mechanics and trying to change your swing. You need to chip away a little bit at that, but really I would have you playing golf and then trying to do a lot of the stuff at home, trying to build your patterns at home, getting comfortable with them, and then checking it, maybe once a week out on the range with your camera and seeing what it looks like. If anything's changing, if it's not changing, it's not changing. So it means you need more exaggeration. Simple as that. It's almost hard to overdo it. If you're trying to change it and you see something like your wrist, you got vertical wrist guy, it's really hard for people to change it. They have to, because they think they're doing it and they're not doing anything. And that's what makes it bad, because you think, oh man, I know that's going to look different. Well, if you see that and it looks the same, it's the same. So that means you need to get it to where you do too much of it, where you see this massive change in whatever it is you're doing. And you see a totally visual change. Then you're going to be on the right track. Doesn't mean you'll be hitting it good right then, but if you know where you're trying to go with some of this, it just means you made a change, and then you got to do it again, and then you got to start feeling that much exaggeration probably for months before that starts to reside, and then you start to look right naturally, and then you can just swing, and it's just there. It doesn't just happen when you're trying to make a change of any sort, really. It's players, especially on their own, without a good coach there, they're going to be thinking they're doing it, and in their mind they're like, I did it, and you look at it on video, it didn't move, and if it doesn't move, it's the same. That's all there is. If you're hitting it better, it's just placebo. It ain't gonna last long because you haven't done anything. So, but if you're seeing visual changes relative to what we're teaching in our style, you guarantee you'll start getting better. You'll start hitting it better, and then that's where the playing will kick in, and then the kettlebells are another way to get out of that and even jump up to another level. So with that being said, hope everybody has a great week. We'll probably be back at it next week on here again, and talking about a few different things. Be a little bit different next week, but again, I can't reinforce how with our style what we teach there, and we got a lot of different styles. There's a lot of variety I can do hands-on. You can't do that on these types of formats. You have to kind of just say, hey, this style works. I'm telling you, there's been too many players that have online that train with us that they're playing the best golf or live golf they've never been at, so it works. It's just it's a particular style, and it's set up to keep you from having to try to recover and work around stuff and things like that. You can just, if you're following this and you're watching, you're studying your videos, you'll get better. There's no doubt about it. And if you're not, your videos you probably hadn't changed anything on video. It looks the same. So it's not going to get better. But all right, I'll see everybody here in about probably in a week, and I hope everything goes well for everybody.